Hi, I'm George Maestri, and today we're going to look at how to create stretched fabric structures. These are often known as tensile structures, and this is a very simple one. It's called a shade sail, and as you can see, it's providing some shade for an outdoor area. So let's go ahead and just dive in, and I'll show you how to create these sorts of structures. So I'm going to start off with just the uprights for this sail. And because this is a four-sided structure, I'm going to create four poles. And then I can do almost all of this just by using the line tool. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off my axes just to make it look a little bit easier here. And so what I'm going to do first is just draw the outline of that sail. Now the sail is stretched between these poles, and when it's perfectly stretched, it will be a straight line. So I'm going to go ahead and select my line tool, and I'm going to snap to the inside top corners of these. So I'm just going to draw four lines. And as you can see, these look kind of like guy wires or something like that. Now, what we need to do is fill in the middle. Now, if you think about it, mathematically, a cloth really is just a bunch of threads going in the X and Y direction. So these would represent the outside threads, but the inside threads of each of these will be stretched in a straight line as well. So if I were to go draw a line using my line tool from the midpoint of this to the midpoint of that, you can see that that would be one of those threads. If I draw one across here from midpoint to midpoint to midpoint, then again, we have another straight thread. And as you can see, this is starting to give me a little bit more of the shape that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and subdivide each one of these four into 16. So I'm going to go ahead and draw from midpoint to midpoint. Go again, and then come across this way. Now really all I'm doing is drawing straight lines, but if you think about it, that's really all the threads are in a piece of fabric. They're just straight lines going from one point to the other. And as you can see, this is starting to develop the shape that we want, and that's just by drawing straight lines. So let's go ahead and just subdivide this one more time. So again, I'm just cutting it in half every single time and just going from 4 to 16 to 64. Now, depending upon the size of your sailcloth and your seam, you may need more than this, but typically I don't ever see needing much more than 64. So half the trick here is just making sure that everything is snapped to the midpoint, because sometimes you get little different points here. You get inferences and stuff that kind of get in the way. So just be careful about how you snap. And let's do this last line. So now I've got a pretty good grid representing how the fabric stretches from one side to the other. And as you can see, even from the grid itself, that this is kind of a hyperbola, and this is actually called a hyperbolic saddle. And now that we have this, we can create the surface. Now, the easiest way to create the surface is to simply select all of these lines, and we'll use these as contours. So if I go draw, sandbox from contours, boom, there it is. And this surface is now separate. So if I were to move this surface, you can see I've got the surface itself is that sandbox contour. And I can select my original lines, and I can either delete them, I can group them to the original. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click over them and hide them. And then I'm going to select this and grab that corner and just snap it back into place. And there we go. So now we have a very nice shade sail that represents the shape if it were stretched between these poles. Now, this method can be used for all sorts of different types of surfaces, so go ahead and experiment with this technique.